to the end.
Have you ever enjoyed a show so much that it felt like you couldn't watch it? Two of my favorite shows are Mushishi and The Twilight Zone, and I enjoyed them so much, but I find myself avoiding watching them. And it's like they're sacred to me, like I have to be in the right mindset to truly enjoy them. For me, Over the Garden Wall is one of those shows. So Over the Garden Wall is a mini-series by Cartoon Network, and it premiered in 2014, which was a time for me where I was not watching cartoons, and I was still watching a lot of anime, but I just wasn't as interested in American cartoons that were airing on TV at the time, and I missed a lot of classics, including Over the Garden Wall. And just a couple years ago, I ended up watching the show. I had seen plenty of clips and screenshots from it around the internet, so it was time for me to finally watch. I didn't know anything about it going in, and I think I put it on just as background noise, but I ended up loving it. This is really the kind of show that I wish was made more often. The music and the visuals are very inspired and unique, and it's a short and contained story that isn't dragged out. I also enjoyed the ambiguous and somewhat cryptic storytelling, which you can probably tell by the two shows I mentioned earlier. It was only about a month ago, though, that I decided to finally cosplay from Over the Garden Wall, and this one kind of snuck up on me. The reason that this cosplay appealed to me, though, is because my pancetta character development would be wanting to dress vintage and old-timey, and it was pretty much after a run to the thrift store that I threw down a bunch of things I bought, and I thought, I should cosplay Wirt. Wirt is also my brand as a cosplay and as a character. Though cosplaying him didn't come to mind right away, I came out of my first watch of the show really liking him. I've stated previously that my favorite kind of boy is the kind of boy who's going through something, and Wirt's character captures that teenage angst and unsureness very well. And I think my favorite part of his characterization comes in the very end when we get to see why all of this is happening in the real world. While we've known all along that he's an awkward teenager, it's really funny to see that all of his classmates and everyone who knows him don't hate him.
Oh, hey, guys. I don't know what he said, but it wasn't true.
Oh, hey, Wirt, how's it going?
You kind of get the impression that he's unpopular, but he's really not. And to this day, Jason Funderburker never fails to make me laugh. I really expected to see some kind of jock, but no, it's Jason Funderburker. Another thing I love about Over the Garden Wall's style is how referential it is to early Western or American cartoons. I spent a lot of time fawning over Japanese animation, and I think in the past couple of years I've been watching more American animation, partially because I can sew and not read subtitles. But in this time, I've come to appreciate my own culture and the things that my own culture produces instead of just thinking that Japan makes the best of everything. The backgrounds, the character design, the colors, everything in it is unique and referential to a time that has a very specific aesthetic. So now that I've talked a little bit about why I like this series, let's talk about the cosplay more. Like I said, I got this idea just a couple months ago, which is perfect because fall is coming. I live in the South, so we don't get fall until November, which actually works well for me because it's given me plenty of time to work on things. I keep seeing pictures online of fully colored trees, and we don't have anything like that here. But the colors have started to turn, and it's been starting to get a little bit colder, which has put some pressure on me. So I'm going to see if I can knock out this costume in a weekend. My last two cosplays have been Shinji Ikari and Celine Bradley, both of which I have had to stick to a simple canon design. My favorite way to make costumes is to add extra details to them, but there are some like Shinji, Salim, and Foss from Land of the Lustrous who I attempted to decorate but found that it didn't really work with the character design. However, Wirt is very simple.
Maybe he's simple.
No.
So I'm going to go crazy on the details. Bringing up Wirt's character design, he's a normal boy dressed as a gnome. His hair is brown and a very simple, achievable cut. So the things that I'm going to focus most on are his pointy red hat and his cape. Underneath both of those things, he has a white button-down shirt and gray pants. Both of those I'm going to source from my wardrobe. His white shirt has black buttons on it, but since I'm sourcing from my wardrobe, I'm going to ignore those. Since I'm limiting myself to a few days of work, let's go ahead and move on to the pieces that I already have. So I have my project bin right here. When I'm getting materials together for a cosplay, I like to put all of my stuff together in one bin. For this cosplay, I'm going to try to spend no money. I mean, I spent the money a long time ago. I'm going to try to buy no new things. For Wirt's hat, I have this red felt. I got it a while back at the thrift store. It was bundled up and it was super inexpensive. Next up we have the wig. I said I didn't want to spend any money and I already lied. I bought this on Mercari just for this cosplay. I was thinking I would use my Shinji wig, but Wirt's hair is shaped differently and I do care that much. So I got this one also for around $6 and we're just going to give it some texture, trim it a bit, and make it look like Wirt's hair. For his shirt, this is the overexposed same shirt that I use for Celine Bradley and pretty much any anime boy who looks like this, which is most of the anime boys I like. What I'm saying is that this shirt was a great investment. I also got this at the thrift store. So in my Shinji video, I embraced my fear of wearing women's pants for male cosplays, and this is a pair of pants that I wear regularly. So Wirt's pants are not patterned, but like I said, I want to go crazy on the details, and I love adding extra textures and details into a cosplay, so Wirt is going to have plaid pants. I also got those pants at the thrift store. Next up, we have his suspenders, and it was buying these suspenders that made me realize I should go ahead and cosplay Wirt. I want to incorporate these into my everyday wear, but we're just going to sneak it in now through a cosplay. These are just plain old suspenders, so not much more to say about that. So finally we have the cape, which I thankfully don't have to make from scratch because I'm going to cannibalize it from a previous cosplay. So this is the cape that I made for my cosplay of Tharja from Fire Emblem. I was really proud of that cosplay when I made it, and I'm still really proud of it, but it's a cosplay I've chosen to retire just because Tharja's not a character who I want to cosplay anymore. But I've kept the cape around because I'm so fond of it, and I'm glad to finally have a use for it. It just happened to be the exact same colors as Wirt's cape. So I'm going to take the details off of the back, and then I'm going to crop the cape. The cape has some extra details that I added to the hem, and I'm going to keep those on my Wirt cosplay, but I'm just going to have to scoot them up after I crop it. The cape is made with a polyester lining and a chiffon outside, which I then hand sewed the details to. I picked it because I like the color, but chiffon isn't really a good thing to sew details onto or to make a lined cape out of. And when I remove these details, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some tears in the fabric, but that is going to work well with my aesthetic. So I also have some fabric from my scrap bin that is dark blue that I'm going to use to patch any holes that are on the cape. And if there aren't that many holes, I might just patch it anyway because I think it'll look really cool and kind of add to the lost child in the woods look. And circling back around to the hat, you might notice that the hat and the lining of the cape are very different reds. I put them side by side and I think they need to be the same color in order for the costume to look good. So I'm going to do some experimenting on painting this felt to see if I can get it darker. If it doesn't work, I'll just go buy some felt that is closer to the red, but I am trying to avoid spending money. And last thing I have is some accessories. So for his cape, I'm going to add these gold buttons that I had in my stash. And I also have this little rose cameo. I'm not sure where I'm going to put it and I might end up not being able to use it, but I really like the way it looks and I just want to see if I can throw it in the costume somehow. So the first thing I should work on is the wig, but when I pulled my cape out of my storage bin, I saw that my dog had peed on it. So the first thing I'm going to do is take all the details off the back of the cape and then wash it. So this is Wirt's wig on my head, completely untrimmed. He has a pretty simple hairstyle, and I don't think it will take that much styling, so I'm just going to trim it on my head and add some texture, make it look a little bit more exciting. But I don't expect this to be too difficult of a wig challenge. So like I did in my Shinji video, I pinned back all of the excess hair and I'm down to the bottom wefts. And I'm going to trim those to be the shortest, and then we're going to unleash the next layer and trim that one until it's all the right length that I want. But the one at the bottom is the one that can be the shortest because that one's not going to be seen. And what it's going to do is just reduce the bulk of all of this hair. Okay, so halfway through styling this, I realized that this wig could also double as a Hanako-kun wig, who I am going to be cosplaying sometime in the future. I already bought a wig for him, but I wasn't happy with the color, and this color's perfect. So I'm going to style this as a Hanako-kun wig, and it's also going to work for Wirt. So for today, at the very least, I want to address the cape and get the wig styled. My original plan was to crop the cape, which is why I took all the embellishments off the bottom. But now that I'm wearing it, I really like how it looks and how it flows, and I don't want to risk messing it up. I also think that the extra length isn't going to be much of an issue. So I'm going to leave the structure of the cape as is, and the only changes I make will be embellishments. So I need to add the buttons, look for places to add patches, and then I'm going to see what I want to do about re-adding the embellishments. My original Tharja cape had gold lace and blue tassels on the hem. This was partially an aesthetic choice because I wanted the cosplay to be fancier, but it's also because of some shortcomings I made in construction. So in order to not have a raw edge, I still need to have there be some kind of trim. I considered adding the trims right back so the cape would be like it was before, but I think part of the visual appeal of Wirt's cape is that it is a single form, a blue thing that encompasses his whole body, and if I were to add a bright color like gold at the bottom, it would break that up. So for this repurposing, I'm going to add only the blue tassels at the bottom, and I'm going to put that on the outside shell of the cape. So with the wig, the only big difference between Hanako-kun and Wirt's hair is that Wirt's is pointier and isn't as straight across as Hanako-kun's. Hanako is a bigger cosplay to me, so I'm going to style the wig more with him in mind. His hair has a lot of scruffiness to it, and right now the wig has the recognizable cut, but it doesn't have the texture and the scruff that I'm looking for. So that's what I'm mainly going to be going for when I do my styling. Like usual, I'll be styling with tacky glue, a hairdryer, and Got2b. Wig styling is finished. You can see I added some more texture. I cut some pieces shorter and then tacky glued them so that they would kind of stick out and be like individualized pieces among the wig. Next, I'm going to work on the hat, and I wanted to do the wig before the hat because the wig adds a little bit of bulk to my head, so I want to fashion the hat around that and make sure I don't make it too small. I'll probably be able to pin it into the wig anyway, but just want the hat to be the right size. For the hat, I kind of didn't know what I was doing. I started by measuring the circumference of my head with the wig on, which was about 23 inches. Then I drew a 23-inch line on my felt, and I ended up cutting it into a square, which I then cut into a triangle. Maybe if I had done better in math, this would have been easier for me to figure out, but that's how it went. And here's the hat on. It's probably gonna be out of focus as I scoot away, but I'm surprised that it stays up on its own. I was thinking I would have to add reinforcement or maybe make it double layered, but nope. Stays up just fine. The hat is actually pinned in place right now, and before I start sewing it, I'm going to paint it because, as I mentioned earlier, the red from the cape is very different from the red from the hat. Even though I set out to make this cosplay very elaborate and decorative, every time I finish a piece of it, I'm like, that's good. So I'm really fighting myself, but because I like how the bright red looks, especially with my wig, it doesn't look as bad as I thought. But I really want to push myself to add more details, and I'm thinking that the paint is going to give it a mottled texture, which will hopefully be really cool. I ended up doing my sewing for day 3 off camera, but we have the hat all finished. So the acrylic painting technique ended up working pretty nicely. It darkened the overall color just a little bit, but what I was able to do was use the splotches to make it look like dirt. I also added some patches of different colored red felt to give it a little bit more depth. For the cape, I said at the beginning that I wanted to make this costume very extra with lots of fancy details, but a problem that I ran into since the cape is such a big part of the costume is that I had already made my design choices back when I made the cape for Tharja. So the cape, which would have been a big chance for me to show off whatever design aesthetic I was going for, with it already being made, there wasn't much I could do. And the cape is made of this shiny, liquidy, chiffony fabric, which I was hoping to be able to patch to add some rustic details to, like I did with the hat. But the whole appeal of that cape is how airy and fresh it looks. So adding patches to it would have, I think, messed up the appeal of the cape and would have also messed up the structural integrity of the cape with it being such a thin and light material. But I still had the fabric that I meant to use for patches, so what I ended up doing was using it to make a collar. I'm kind of obsessed with patchworking and worn fabric, so I decided to do some of that on the cape. I filmed this video differently. My preferred way of crafting is to finish the whole craft and then sit down and tell you about what I did. But I want to try more of a blogging day-by-day format. And a problem that I had with doing this is that I changed my mind a lot while working through it. I think because this is a costume that I was working with pieces that I already had and had a different idea in mind than what was possible. So a couple other small things changed. Originally, I was going to use a plain button-down shirt, but when some of my fancy details fell through on the cape, I decided that I would use a fancier looking shirt. So this one that I have has some ruffles around the chest area, and that makes me feel a little bit fancier. There's also the pants. Originally, I was going to use a plaid pair of ankle-length pants that I have, but when I tried them on, they're very tight, and I think they brought out the curve of my hips more than I wanted to with a costume like this. So I decided to go with a different pair of pants. These pants are khaki, so it's not as accurate, but I like the fit a lot better. It makes my legs look straighter and more boyish, which is what I'm going for here. And they're not plaid, but they do have a pinstripe design, so I'm happy with that. So let's put the whole thing on and see how it looks. This is the simplest costume I've done in a while, but I really love wearing it. The colors look really nice and it's fun to wear. There's some costumes I have that I like how I look in, but I don't really enjoy wearing them to cons because they're not fun to wear. I think that's a reason that I don't do a lot of school uniform costumes, because that's not fun to me. Whereas being able to wear a cape is fun. So with the costume finished, that concludes day 3. But I still want to do my photo shoot, and the leaves aren't quite ready yet, so we're going to put this project on hold for now, and when you next see me, it will be when I do my photo shoot. Alright, it's about a week later. I've picked the most flattering angle I could find, and I'm going to do my shoot now. I'm going to one of the parks that I accidentally went to last time. It has a lot of trees and the leaves have finally started to turn, so I'm pretty optimistic that we'll do well. Also, it's Halloween, and I figured today would be a good day because I'm in a costume and no one will question anything. Alright, so let's go. So I brought my dad again with me to the park for safety and for reassurance. And this time I ended up really needing him because I forgot most of my gear. I mostly shoot with the self-shoot pointer and my tripod and the attachment that goes on the bottom of my camera, and I forgot everything but the tripod. We went to a park near the house again because I wanted to get some fall leaves, and I live in a neighborhood with not many fall leaves accessible to me. The problem though with shooting in public is that it's not something I'm very used to, so I'm not very comfortable. And I think this shoot and Shinji really cemented that. because my style of photography is sort of more suited to a studio and a place where I can really take angsty artistic photos. And being outside in public in a place that I'm not really familiar with, it doesn't help me create my best work. What we're looking at today is what I'm going to call a quick shoot, and I'm a perfectionist. I would really like to go back and have a perfect shoot to show you guys, but honestly, this is what's realistic, and I'm very busy in my personal life, so I think I should just get this out and show you guys what I have today. And some other time when I want to make a really well thought out artistic Wirt shoot, I'll do that. But for now, let's look at what I got. So first off, we have test shots. Since I forgot my everything, I ended up directing my dad and having him take the pictures. So I guess this is a collaborative effort, and in a sense it's training me to be able to vocalize what I want, since I think that's a reason I avoid taking pictures with other people. Alright, you guys are probably sick of staring at this one picture. So when we got to the park, there was the sun was starting to go down, which made some other pictures impossible to get, but there was a very lovely area right here with the backlit leaves, colorful leaves, that was quite nice. This was me setting up that shot, and I wanted a picture of myself pretty much framing, I wanted a picture with these leaves framing me. So here is a test shot. Wow. Next up we have another one. I really like I should talk about my rating system. So what I'm doing right now is I am in Lightroom. I start everything in Lightroom and do basic touch-ups, then I move to Photoshop. And in Lightroom, I will put all of my pictures I will import all of my pictures, and then I will go through and I will add 1 star to every picture that I think I might want to edit, just to narrow them down. Alright, here, this is more of what I was going for. So I have 3 shots that are very similar. And I went through and looked through these already, so this is the one that I want to keep. I like it because the leaf is visible in this shot, not this one. This shot, which is similar, the leaf was not visible. So that's what we're going for here. And we're going to put that one in the pile to edit with 1 star. Alright, so for this one, I saw this dark area in the back of the woods and it felt very ominous to me. So I wanted a picture of myself walking back into the woods. We'll see if we can do anything about this stuff. This was the first attempt. Also, I wanted the cape flowing. So this was the first attempt, and here is the second. For this one, I moved a little bit closer to the camera, and this is more in line with what I want. I've already accepted that I'm just going to be making that face in every single photo. So for this one, I saw this area and I thought it would be cool to dangle my feet over the edge, but it was much more moody and cool in my head. I don't know if I'm going to edit this one, but this is good sad boy Wirt energy. Why do my shoes look like a founding father? This one's bad. I don't want anyone to see it. We might cut it out. I look like a K-pop boy, but in a bad way. Oh gosh. Picture of the water. So for this shot, I saw this area where the leaves were framing, and I set up the camera showing my dad that I wanted the leaves to be framing and that I would be right in here looking out. So here's the first attempt at that. This one I have starred because I want to see if I can rescue it. I love the reflection of the leaves in the background, but of course I am very hard to see. However, if you raise the exposure, you can see that the data is still you can see that the data is still there, so it has the possibility of being rescued. However, I had my dad take another photo, which is this one. I don't like this one as much, and the reflection of the water isn't as cool, so I have it starred, but I really want to see if I can save the other one first. So here's a picture of me posing with the tiny pumpkin. I was on a log. Here's another one that's a little bit closer, but I actually I like this one better. It's in better focus. So we're going to edit this one just for funsies. So it was pretty late by the time we had gotten to the park, much later than I meant for us to get there. And at this point, my dad was ready to go home. It was also pretty clear that I didn't know what I was doing. So we started to head back to the parking lot. And I think my dad could tell I was kind of dissatisfied. So he was like, well, how about those leaves over there? So he saw this leafy area, and that was when I got an idea that I would take an angsty photo with myself surrounded by leaves. So I got in the leaves and asked my dad to take a picture. Here's the first version. Not looking good here, but he was like, that looks really cool, and he showed me this, and I said, okay, get closer, like macro close. So here's the next one, and I said, but could you get my face in focus? And to avoid this drunk eye that I have, I decided to close my eye. So here is the final version of that. And after I took this, I felt really good about myself. And it was after taking this picture that I really confirmed with myself that I need to be comfortable to do my best work. So I'll be doing a better Wirt shoot some other time. But for now, this is the picture I'm most pleased with, and I'm very happy to have it. However, right before we left, my dad saw a stick and he really wanted me to take a picture with the stick, so here's me with the stick. So I have now moved to my smart folder where all of the 1-star photos are, and these are the winning photos. The one where I've got my arm up. Cape. Looking Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. Baby Pumpkin. #angst, and the stick. So I'm going to do some rudimentary editing on these, and you guys can see what I guess my routine is. We have a lot of working with light in this one. I didn't want to do that much to it since I think it looked pretty good as is. Another thing I'll do is black or white clothing always reflect blue, so I'll do a separate layer just to remove that blue from there. And I think the most beneficial thing to this picture was at the very end where I did some painting with the Dodge and Burn tool to give it more depth. I've been using Dodge and Burn more lately on places like my face where I want there to be highlights, and in the corners and areas around to give more depth to the image. I'm hoping that this will add more pizzazz to my photos. Picture number 2, she's simple, but I can change her. So for this one, I actually had a lot of fun because I think the image looks good, but the lighting is what needs to be improved to give it the feeling that I want. But I always try to get my stuff to look as good out of camera as I can so that I just have to touch things up. I don't like to do a lot of heavy things like reconstructing limbs or even doing frequency separation on skin. For this one right here, it's fall, but I made it more fall by turning the green more orange. So right here is where I started to... So here on these 2 layers is where I addressed the background. So we have a really nice division here between this tree and the background. The tree's sort of in the middle of the image with me in the front and this being in the very back. So that made it really easy to edit this part. So right here we have a color balance where I took some of the life out of the colors. And then here we have a curves layer where I really darkened it. And of course I cut myself out of it, so I'm not being darkened, but this whole area behind me is being darkened, which makes it look more ominous and foreboding. This layer right here, so I wanted to address the sidewalk as well. The sidewalk looks fine as is, but to make it darker, I added some blue tones to it. And then here's the money layer right here. So this is where I did dodge and burn. You can see that I burned the edges of the sidewalk to give it more oomph. And I also burned the grass, and I did some stuff around here to make it stand out more and make it look a bit more barren. This is some concrete that's lining the lake. I thought about editing it all out, but I think it kind of worked, and it gives it sort of almost a dystopian feel. So that's all for that one. I'm really happy with how this one came out. This might be one of my favorites. I think it's different from the kinds of pictures I usually take, and it has more of a story to it. I took a similar picture for my Snufkin shoot, and I think this is a better realized version of it. This is the one that needed a lot of help because it's so strongly backlit. I wanted to make myself more visible in it. So a lot of this is me working with curves to make myself more visible. But the problem was that if I made myself too bright, there was a lot of noise on me, and I didn't want that. So this is a lot of doing my best. Here you can see I also worked with the hue and saturation to give it more of a yellow color in the leaves. Here's a separate layer just for brightening the leaves up. Once again, adding more orange. I used curves to bring out the reflections on the lake. The reflections on the lake are something I really like in this picture, and between this and the other one that was similar, I really wanted to use this one because of that. So this layer right here is the one that has me on it. On this final layer where I do my dodging and burning and editing, you can see that I removed this. This was a buoy thing for the boats in the lake, and I just did some brightening up around here. So this one I'm mostly satisfied with. I think this picture is probably better than I think it is. I like things that are very clear. I struggle with using different kinds of lighting because I like for myself to be very visible, like in this picture. So one like this where you can't see me as well is against what I like to do, but honestly you can still tell that it's me, and it has a lot of really nice leaves and lighting in it. So this is satisfactory. So the real last picture is the stick picture, but that's not an interesting edit. So the last edit I'm going to show is the leaf picture. The leaf picture is right up my alley, the kind of thing I like to do. And I realized after taking it, I just took the picture because it seemed right, it felt right. But in hindsight, it's like that scene near the end where Wirt is being covered in leaves. So we're going to pretend that I thought that from the start, and we're going to admire how great I am at thinking of shoots. Anyway, for editing this, I'm happy with the composition. There's nothing that I want to take out. I just want to punch up the colors and make it more dramatic. So first off, we have color balance, and this is on me. So I intensified the blue in my cape. I've been calling it a cape the whole time, but I guess it's a cloak. And then we have hue and saturation, also on me. That's very subtle. Here we have some curves. I did curves on me once again. This is just to brighten myself a bit. Color balance. This is where I started to work on the leaves. As with the leaves in all the other pictures, I wanted it to be more fall-like. So we're just cheating a bit. On this layer, I took the blue out of my shirt, and now we're coming to the money layers. First up, this one is a curves layer, and it's on all of the leaves. Yeah. So in this layer, you can see I intensified the colors. Really like the pop that gave the image. And then on the last layer, I did dodging and burning. So I burned in any of the areas that were already dark. I burned so that it would be darker and bring out the natural intensity. I don't want it to be incredibly obvious that I did something, but I did do something. That one was pretty simple, but I'm really happy with the change that I was able to make. And that wraps up editing. So let's do a quick gallery and enjoy the fruits of our labor. I had a good time working on this project. It was still a small project, something I did in just a couple days with things that I had already made, but it's nice being able to put together a costume quickly like that and to get some nice pictures. I'm trying not to take everything so seriously. I did a lot of cosplay photography stuff in college. I took it very seriously. So these days I want to still have fun with things. Not every photo shoot has to be a masterpiece. I definitely want to shoot Wirt again in an environment where I'm more comfortable and I can take more artistic pictures. That last picture with the leaves really inspired me, so we'll see if I can get a concept in mind and then I can make a video about doing that too. So thank you for watching. If you're interested in seeing similar videos like this, you can subscribe to my channel. I'm still pretty new around here, so we're still building up the audience.